ready to build resiliency, create a healthy lifestyle, and overcome adversity with a warrior mindset. This is Define the Fight with Mariah Prussia.
Hey everyone, welcome to this fine Monday morning. We are going to get ready to rock it out today. And what's awesome is when you meet individuals, when you least expect it, that are actually from your neck of the woods. It kind of surprises me that, going to North Carolina, that you would meet somebody that graduated from the same college in Moorhead, Minnesota, of all different areas. So, when we talk about resiliency, what does that look like? It looks different for every single individual, but today I am joined with an amazing individual. His name is Patrick Diedrich. He is the Senior Editorial Content Director of Recoil Offgrid, and he's also a respected voice in survival, self-reliance, and tactical preparedness. He's also a former U.S. Army Cavalier Scout with deployments to the Middle East. He's led missions from urban recon to hurricane relief. His experience spans wilderness search and rescue, forestry, and advanced survival instruction. He has multiple degrees, and I tell you what, I look forward to learning more about him today because you know what? It's when we link arms with individuals, the only way that we can go up is up because of the fact of learning from one another. So Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy to think that you have done so many different things in such a small amount of time. So let's talk about a little bit about your past, Patrick, before we dive in to the current. So let's talk about mental health, where you originally were from and where you have moved into being on the off-grid and writing.
Oh man, yeah, it's amazing how much can happen in such a short amount of time. Just to set the record straight, I didn't graduate Minnesota State University Moorhead, but I did spend my first semester of college there. And that's kind of where everything sort of starts because while I was going to school, I ended up finding myself working at the time, I'm not sure if it still exists up there or not, but it was called Churches United for the Homeless, and it was a homeless shelter. And I worked like the second shift there, right? And there were families, individuals, all going through various, circumstances. And for me, having just grown up in like podunk, small town, rural Wisconsin, it was a big eye opener, right? Because not a lot of people in those regions get exposed to things like that. So I learned a lot more going to school and working at the homeless shelter than I would have just going through your average freshman year of college. It kind of inspired me to look into other avenues and ways that I could improve myself, secure my future, and I ended up joining the military as a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. And I was in that for almost 13 years. I was planning on making that a career. And, towards the end of that 13th year, the 12th, 13th year, just being under different forms of stress for so long, my heart stopped working the way it should. And that opened up a whole different can of worms. I was basically told like, hey, if you can't deploy anymore, you can't be in the military. That's the point of the military, is to deploy overseas and go where the nation wants you to go. If you can't do that, well, you're SOL. So I was losing my career. At the same time, I found out that my ex had basically started a whole new family while I was like behind my back, right? It was like every country song, like every worst horrible story in a country song combined, was happening all at once. And man, like when every rug of life, your family, your career, your plans for the future, when everything's like being pulled out from underneath you, it really forces you to, adapt or die. Like that's, that's the whole thing about survival. Um, at some point along the way, um, the previous senior editor of Recoil Offgrid, he was actually one of my lieutenants when we were deployed overseas on my third deployment. Um, and he reached out and asked, like, do you want to start writing for us? Right. So I started freelancing for them. I ended up really working on myself, working on my health, um, going back to school. I went back to grad school. Um, and just got into so many different things. I had a consulting forestry company in Upper Michigan. I was making custom knives. I was doing all these different things, exploring all sorts of opportunity. Because life just can't be simple. At the same time, COVID started. And like nothing worked out the way anybody wanted it to work out then. And uh, it just forces you to adapt and overcome and try to develop all these different mindsets, like positive mindsets and things like that. um, I'm taking the long road to get to where I am now in the story. But yeah, it wasn't more than maybe like a year and a half ago. The previous senior editor kind of stepped down and moved to something else, and they asked, they were looking for candidates. I threw my hat into the ring, and ended up now in the position where I'm at, sharing all these amazing survival and preparedness stories with just like the best audience anyone could ask for. And yeah, that's how I got to this where I'm sitting right now.
And that is like the couple minute version, because we all know when we're going through navigating the storm that it takes years, months, days. I mean, it's constant work. We're always work in progress. That's really what it comes down to. And when one chapter ends, there's always a new chapter that starts, but you have to choose to pick up the pen and start writing. And it sounds like that's clearly pun intended. That's what you did. So you're going from making knives to clearly serving to you name it. What led you into writing? I mean, was that something that you were always gifted with, or was that something that kind of popped into play when you're like, okay, well, my profession is unfolding, my personal relationship is unfolding? Is that one of the different coping mechanisms or strategies that you went to, was now releasing through writing?
It's certainly played a role. When you find yourself in situations like that are really stressful, I hesitate to call it avoidance, right? But you try to keep your mind on things that are constructive, and that was certainly one of them. Um, I had experience, in third world countries, seeing how people live and adapt over there. I was stationed in Louisiana when Hurricane Katrina hit, and a boatload of other hurricanes nobody remembers. But the South is always getting slammed with hurricanes. Um, and I've had this experience, and it was cool to see that others were listening to it and appreciating that. So it kind of it got a spark going inside of me, right? Because one of the most satisfying things that I think a human can do is pass along that wisdom and experience to others, so they can benefit from it.
100%. Patrick, I want to go into a quick break, but, when we come back, I do want to talk about your experience with, being stationed with Hurricane Katrina, because now we know Hurricane Melissa is heading directly for Jamaica. So it gives individuals an insight of what they may be experiencing and how we can also send additional love and light their way. So we'll be back here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with Patrick Diedrich, and he is a wealth of knowledge, experiences. And with the different shifts that clearly goes on with Mother Nature, we never know which way she's going to flip, turn, spin, or drop. And Patrick has experienced, years ago when Hurricane Katrina came through. He was stationed there. And I'm really curious on the experiences because we don't know, watching the news, we can see things, but we're not there in actually feeling the different emotions, the energy and everything that comes into play. And now with Hurricane Melissa coming through towards Jamaica, I think it's very important for people to be able to connect a little bit deeper on what some of those experiences may or may not be that are coming up actually today. So do you want to dive into back when you were there for Hurricane Katrina?
Sure. First of all, I was very fortunate because I was stationed on a military base, which has backup power, backup food, all these different things. But the surrounding community really got the worst of it. And nature is a funny thing because um, you could be, a few houses over, and a wind gust that rips the roof off of your neighbor's house, completely misses you, and your house is fine. So there's a lot of randomness that you really can't fully account for. But probably the biggest thing when I look back at this is the power goes out, and it's going to go out. The winds just, it's wreaking havoc on power lines and things like that. And our power was, even on the military base, our power was out for weeks. And you don't realize how important things that we take for granted, like refrigeration, are when it comes to that loss of power. um, we had basically block parties where we were just trying to cook as much food as we could and share it with everybody before it spoiled. Same thing, like the local Walmart. They took everything from their freezer section. They were trying to get rid of it on a discount as fast as they could for people with cash. You couldn't use cards because the readers and stuff didn't work. And like that first week, well, even the first 3 days, right? Like your refrigeration, if you keep your refrigerator and freezer closed, that'll last for a day or two. Uh, if you're that far south, that, like, it gets hot and humid. It's not going to last as long as it would, if you were up in Fargo, with a chest freezer full of meat, in the garage this time of year. It's probably going to stay longer there than it is down in the south. So food, electricity, something that comes along with the water, just the volume of water. Anything that is bad that is in the environment, oil drippings from your car, stuff that you just toss out, into the drain, septic systems, right? All of that is getting flushed and up to the surface, floating around. The higher the water comes up, the more your house is being exposed to at different levels of your house. It is a mess. We spent days and days with chainsaws, literally cutting some people out of their houses because the trees would collapse around their houses. If you look at, maybe closer to home, where a tornado might hit and how it just kind of tosses everything around, it's not too dissimilar to that. Where a tornado's, more focused and concentrated. You're still going to get those high power wind gusts with a hurricane, but it's so much more widespread. And yeah, it's a mess. It takes a long time to clean up and recover. I mean, there's still people cleaning up and recovering from what was it, Hurricane Helene last year around this time.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's an incredible force of nature, and it affects such a widespread area. It can be overwhelming and difficult to comprehend if you're not in it.
And we had storms that came through, clearly not a hurricane, but we had tornadoes that came through in June. And when they're looking at the high rates of winds that are anticipated to be for Hurricane Melissa, I believe it was like 170 up to gusts of 200 miles per hour. Back in June, I believe it was either 113 or 118 miles per hour that came through where I live. And you talk about the fact that Mother Nature doesn't really have necessarily a direct target. You just, you pray and hope that you're not the target. But, 2 miles west, 2 miles east of us, there were 2 Morton buildings that were completely flattened to the ground. Tin was flying all over in fields, whereas we were right in the middle, and there was no damage really to our external property except for a lot of trees were uprooted, downed all over the place. But when you're talking about the importance of water and the septic system and the oil and everything like that coming through, it's just crazy to think that we've become such a divided country that we need to start looking at how can we start connecting worldwide, not just in our nation, because this is going to be detrimental to a very small area that doesn't have the financial means that we do or the resources to recoup that fast. So, you look at preparedness. How does somebody prepare, whether it's for a natural disaster, whether it's for life and all of those different things? Because I know you talk about those components. What are some different levels besides trying clearly to evacuate, but just in life that people can take note of? Okay, where do I need to really, truly prepare in my life, whether it's mental, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional, all of those different pieces?
Yeah, those are all important facets. I think for the case of this hurricane, or just natural disasters in general.
Yeah.
If there's a silver lining that comes out of this, is it usually has this effect that brings people together, right? We deep down, as divided as we are with all the noise of politics or whatever, like deep down, we are all mostly compassionate human beings, and we don't like to see our neighbors suffer, and we don't want to see our families suffer. I think one of the most important preps you can do is get to know your neighbor. I think one of the most important things you can do is take steps that foster that closeness of community. Because when these natural disasters come through, I mean, it's going to take time to mobilize. I mean, there's probably planes on the tarmac in the U.S. right now ready to bring water and food and stuff to Jamaica, or the surrounding islands. But it's going to take time to get there. And until that happens, you're stuck with whoever's in your circle, whoever's in your community, who's in the next 2 or 3 houses next to you. And so you're going to have to band together in isolation and help each other get through this until outside help can arrive, if it arrives. Sometimes it doesn't. So working on skills like simple carpentry, like repairing a window, repairing a door. Anybody who has drywall now in a hurricane is going to have to gut their house and clean things out and do all these things. And like skills, community building, stuff like that is so overlooked. Like the sexy thing is get the coolest gear, get the coolest whatever, right? But those items don't help you if you don't have the knowledge to use them, if you don't have friends who can assist. One of the first things humans did as a survival skill was build a tribe, right? Like we clumped together and helped each other survive, and like that carries through to this day.
I wholeheartedly agree. And when you're talking about community, it's recognizing too, what do other individuals have and what do you have, and how can you share those different tools? And meeting you at the Mountain Readiness Summit in North Carolina too, it's important that we can go to all of these different areas and learn different skills. But if we don't apply them, or without repetition as well, how do you expect to be successful in that? So it's like, until you have a plan, you need to make sure that you have a way. When we come back, though, Patrick, I want to come in and dive into some of other different experiences, because I know you have real world grit and a lot of different components that I want to make sure that you share here on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with Patrick Diedrich, and we are going to dive into a few things. But before we do, I want to share this quote. And I'm huge when I do my workouts. Sometimes I listen to things, sometimes I don't. Typically, I don't because I like to have my own self reflection. But I listened to Napoleon Hill this weekend, and he had a great video that was on YouTube. And one of the quotes that I really loved is fire without direction burns everything, fire with purpose builds empire. And I think it's important for us to understand that without having a direction and utilizing our internal flame to really create a purpose, that's where we struggle. So it's all about building purpose. And I know, Patrick, with that throughout your life, you've had a lot of different things. It's like you're lighting the kindling and the fire continues to grow. And now being at, Recoil Offgrid magazine, I want to learn more about your stories, what your main mission is with writing. And I know it's education. I know you have different experiences. So I'd love for you to dive in and share with us what readers can anticipate when they look at your work.
Sure. Well, it's something I have become passionate over time with is um, either sharing knowledge or experience that could be potentially life saving. You talk about finding that sense of purpose. Um, it's that the person you were, a year ago or even a week ago is different than the person you are now, and that purpose can change. And my writing has changed over time as well. I initially started with some more think pieces. Like yeah, I think my first article I ever wrote was about like in traditional knowledge, right? The traditional survival knowledge, the type of stuff your grandmother might have passed down to you. Um, and then I got into skills and I got into gear, and then I've kind of come full circle, and now I'm back into the like the experiential side of things. And one of my favorite things to do is to either go to a place, go to a class, find those golden nuggets of wisdom from that experience, and share that on Recoil Off Grid. And one of my most recent, and this has probably been the most profound thing that I've ever done, was I spent almost 2 weeks in the Amazon jungle with the indigenous tribes down there, learning how to live in the jungle like they're doing. I was talking with a guy. He's a Métis elder. His name's Quinny. He remembers first contact with the outside world, right? Like it was like going back to prehistoric times. It was just a phenomenal thing. And I wrote about that. It's in the October issue, the print magazine of Recoil Off Grid. It'll be up on the web at some point. But like those types of stories, like if you don't who like I'm fortunate that I can go and do those things for the sake of journalism, right? Not everybody can. So if I can bring that back, like and share the points of views from these these indigenous tribes in the Amazon, right? You'd laugh, right? There's Starlink down there, there's cell phones down there, technology's trickling in, right there. That traditional way of life is evaporating. And so I like finding those types of scenarios, and just getting that out there and sharing it with people, because I think it's just so fascinating, and there's just so much we can learn from those guys.
How were you able to adapt then being in the Amazon jungle? Clearly there's the climate, everything like that. So what were your takeaways without giving away your article? What were some of your personal lessons from that experience?
I'll tell you, and I do write about this, but it's not giving away the whole article. Probably one of the biggest things I learned was to slow down. Um, so like in search and rescue, I did that for a while too. There's this acronym called STOP, right? If you get lost in the woods, or if you're just being overwhelmed by a situation, right? The acronym STOP stands for Stop, Think, Observe, Plan. And people talk about it a lot. Like if you get into like wilderness medicine or anything like that, But man, these guys down there, they kind of like that's their default mode is, they don't rush anything. There's so much in the jungle that could harm you, right? Like there's spiky plants, there's poisonous spiders, there's caiman and stingrays and like all these other things. So if you were just to like, I'm just gonna just trounce across the river, right? Like if you don't go slow and methodically, you're gonna step on a stingray and you're gonna end up in a hospital for a week, right? If you're lucky, if you can
Right.
get out of there. So if you take your time, if you slow down, the jungle has a way of rewarding patience where, going slow, you can notice, okay, oh, that tree right there, that's medicinal. That plant over there, I can eat that, right? Oh, there's a snake coiled over there, I better not go that way, right? But you don't see those things in an environment like the jungle that's just so this like a sensory overload for us, right? Because we're not used to living in something like that. But if you take your time, you'll like everything will just kind of present itself to you if you just slow down and think.
That's a great reflection, because we are grind it until you find it. Keep moving quick. The
Hmm.
faster that I move, then I'm going to achieve my goal at a faster rate. And then it doesn't come about it isn't about the process. It's about the finish line. So we need to make sure
we're
that we're
we're
working, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, we're very goal oriented, especially in American culture. It's like we're always trying to find the most efficient way from point A to point B. But just that that slowing down, like it doesn't have to be inefficient. It can improve your quality of life, and it's not just with surviving in the jungle. Slow down in your relationships, slow down, with your career planning, slow down washing the dishes, right? Like, like there's things that you can enjoy more out of life if you just take the time to see what's going on around you and just appreciate things.
Yeah, because we live life in fast forward versus living life in the present. And that is very
Mm,
damaging, right? So, looking at those things and talking about nature and, like you said, moving slowly through the jungle, because, hey, if you move too quick, you might take a wrong step. It
hmm
transfers the same in life when it comes to choices. When we're moving too quick, we may miss a detail that's very important, or we may miss a sign that is, hey, God is like literally saying, hey, how many times do I have to throw this sign at you that this is where I'm guiding you? But we're too caught up in the monkey brain that we don't pause and say, hold on a second. I'm getting a message right here. I'm trying to, put my foot on the accelerator and I can do this and I'm taking control instead of allowing the flow to come into the place. But one thing is like observing nature is recognizing that humans are so much like animals. And when we start looking at different characteristics, and if we want to be a certain way, instead of looking at or idolizing another individual, oh, hey, I want to be like them, let's stop and actually open up your front door or go to a park and then look at some of the animals and how they move. And if you want to move like that, start looking at their characteristics and start bringing those into your life. I don't know if you've ever read the book Animal Speak. It's a very great book. It's for some people, it's not for other people. It really all depends on where you're at. But one of the action items in the book is open your front door and pay attention to the birds. And whatever bird you first see, is that bird flying, left to right or north, south, east, west? Are they all over the place or are they calm? Not saying that your day is going to be like this, but I did this a couple days in a row. And the first day I had so many birds. I'm like, which one do I pick? And they were all over the place. And the crazy thing is my day became crazy, chaotic, in a good way. But it was like, okay, so was nature that day. What was the energy of what was going on outside? But then the very next day, I look outside and there's only a single bird that is just sitting on a tree. Wasn't moving. It was just, singing its own song. And my day was kind of the same way. So again, I'm not saying interpret and say, if it's like this is how my day is going to be, because that's not it. But it's just looking at the fact of how everything else moves And sometimes we don't see that until we actually slow down and take a step back. So that's where I was going with that. But
No, that's interesting. I haven't read that book, but I'm gonna check it out for sure. And you know what? I might argue even like before you go outside and see what the animals are doing, observe your observe your room, like observe your living room, observe your bedroom, right?
yeah.
Is it a chaotic mess? Or like does it need some organization to like clear some of the mental clutter? I think, like your brain is taking in every single detail, whether you realize it or not, and it is affecting you on some level. So, no, that's interesting. I'm going to start paying attention to the wildlife now and see if they're having an influence on my day.
see see what shakes out, and all of a sudden now you've got these wild like lions and stuff running through, and I'm just kidding, but you know what I mean. It's pretty
I'm
crazy,
ready for it.
right? Just bring it on, bring it on. But that's what
Yep.
life is. It's like, how do you embrace different things and recognize, okay, well, hey, it is what it is. I'm going to roll with it. But what message is being delivered to me today? We're going to go into a quick break, but Patrick, I want to talk about different ways that you work through your day. So you talk about looking at your room, the environment that you're in, and different health perspectives that people can incorporate into their day. So we'll be back here shortly on Define the Fight. Hey, welcome back to Define the Fight. We are here with Patrick Diedrich. He is the Senior Content Director of Recoil Offgrid. He's shared a couple of his experiences, but I look forward to reading that article about your experience in the Amazon jungle, because that kind of fascinates me. I'm going to be honest with you. It's like, okay, hey, taking yourself from one place, putting yourself in another, but learning from different cultures is very, very important. But what also is very important is making sure that we are taking care of our own vessel. So with all the different things that you have encompassed within your life and current things in the area that you're moving towards, what are some of the whether it's morning rituals, different strategies that you utilize to stay grounded?
I sometimes I try to have a routine. It doesn't always work out as exactly as I plan, but I mean, it's simple as like waking up and having some electrolytes, or getting some sunlight in your eyes, and I'm a coffee drinker. I got to have my stimulants. But I I have learned, especially since my medical retirement from the military, how important um, just taking care of your physical health is. I mean, that is the foundation. That is the bedrock. Look at people in their 70s and 80s who are still physically active.
Hmm.
They look amazing. And then look at people who are in their 40s and 50s who haven't been physically active their whole lives. They're worse off than those people in their 70s and 80s. You have to have a solid physical health foundation, or the rest of your life is just not going to line up the way you want it to. It affects everything. I mean, it affects your mental health. Like when you're physically active, it improves your mind, your memory, your brain. It balances and regulates your hormones. I mean, everything starts from that solid foundation of physical health. We were not meant to be sedentary creatures, sitting on a couch or behind a desk. We were meant to move. We were meant to hunt. We were meant to constantly go, 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 right?
Yeah.
It's kind of manifesting, in our society now, like we were talking earlier, right? Where, we're just trying to look for the most efficient way from plan A to point A to point B. But, like maybe that comes from, our this need to move. Like we have a need to move, and we should, because that man, that sets the tone for everything. So I'm a big proponent of, get yourself straight first physically, work on your physical health, then move to your mental health, move to your dental health, like take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, work on other things, that'll improve your life.
Yeah, and there's so many different facets, because each piece is connecting into a larger puzzle of what life is, and then
Mm.
what defining what health is. There was I read something this weekend also, and I'm going to start doing this, and it's doing an aura audit, right? So 30 days of doing this in the morning. So the first one was an emotional audit. Why am I feeling this? What is this feeling, right? And then, is this bringing me closer to who I want to become? And if not, then it's working through that emotion and then releasing it. The second one was align and affirm. So it's visualization of where you want to envision yourself, give yourself affirmation into the direction that you're going. So like for me, I know what my big audacious goals are, right? For motivational speaking and writing, so on and so forth. So it's visualizing those things and really truly feeling that emotion. Like, I've already captured this. Like, this is it. Like, here we go, game on. But then it's also about the repetition and constantly doing that. And it's releasing things, because as we grow, we tend to try to hang on to our old self. Like, come with me. I still need you with me. And the reality is we don't. We need to cut that cord. It's like that part of you was with you for that journey. Now you're in a new journey, and your body and your mind and your spirit is saying, I need to grow. I want to grow. I'm elevating to a higher place, not from a place of power or greed, but from a place of, hey, I want to leave a larger impact. So how do I do that? Well, it also starts with letting go. And I think that's a key thing, that from a mind, from a spirit, from all of those different pieces of the puzzle is going inward, because sacred silence is very, very important when it comes to overall success and then developing a warrior mindset, because you need a warrior mindset also, right, to make sure that it carries into the physical realm also.
What you're describing there kind of reminds me of if you've ever seen the show Alone, where these people go out into the wilderness by themselves and try to last for as long as they can, right? Surviving in the wilderness. There's usually a point, and it affects each person differently. So they're forced into that sacred silent space, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people don't come back from that. Like they go there and they just can't be inside their own heads, right? And when you're talking about we just hold on to everything. God, is that true? Like everything that's ever affected you, even as like a kid up until the present, is in your mind. And if you haven't processed that, if you haven't worked through that and released the negative energies that are affecting you and all that stuff, you're not going to be in a good place when you finally do get to a point where, like, oh, it's been 40 years, I'm going to start meditating and thinking on myself. Like, it's going to be tough, but gosh, is it important? Because we're all walking around and we're like complete mysteries to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so many people just haven't worked on themselves at that level. And you're right, that is a very crucial component.
We're just unlocking the doors right now. I mean, whatever age you are right now, Patrick, I know I'm nearing 50, and it's like, okay, I honestly feel like my life has just begun, where it's like, wow, I'm excited for what is next. You had a great line, though, as you last as long as you can. And I think that's important for all of us, is we want to make sure that longevity is key, but that also takes and requires a lot of work to make sure that we are optimizing our, optimal health, wellness, mental health, all of those things come together. I want to thank you, Patrick, though, for joining me today and sharing your fight. And what I want to do now is I want to make sure that you are sharing your content, your website, for individuals to follow, to read more about your experience, especially like, who doesn't want to learn about your experience in the Amazon jungle?
Yep. If you Google Recoil Offgrid, you'll find our website. It's offgridweb.com. And we're on any social media with the tag at Recoil Offgrid. So you can find us pretty much on every platform with that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me today, Patrick. Until next week, until the next day, whatever it is, continue to define your fight, because until you define the fight, how do you expect to win the fight? We'll see you next week.